Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another reading vlog. This is going to be, hopefully, my spooky season week reading vlog. However, I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to read before that point, and I'm just very unorganised, so I don't even know whether I'll be able to film this and then edit it. I'm kind of hoping I will be, but I'm not holding my breath. So originally I was filming a reading vlog for a YA trilogy that's kind of got some heat on TikTok, but I actually didn't end up liking the first book like I thought I might have, and I don't think I'm going to continue on with that series. So that has just been scrapped. I'm not doing that anymore. And instead what I've decided to do is completely ignore the books that I have left on my monthly TBR in place of books that kind of give off spooky season vibes. So there are 3 books that I'm hoping to read in this reading vlog. You may see this well after Halloween, but either way, I'm going to be reading these books. I'm really in the mood for them right now, especially considering the first one that I've started reading is really giving me that spooky season vibe. So the first book that I'm going to be reading in this reading vlog is You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Bayron. This is a YA, I would describe it as like a slasher horror book. So this follows a young girl named Charity, and she works at this kind of like summer camp type place that was the setting for a slasher horror movie in like the 80s, I think it was. And now what they do there is kind of like thrill slash like scare experiences where people will pay to go there, and her and the other people that work there will kind of act out a horror movie, and then these people are obviously participants in that. They sign a declaration to say that they don't mind being touched and, you know, scared and whatever else, and they essentially play out a horror movie and scare their patrons. And she is the final girl, which is the most coveted role at the camp. And the twist in this book is that she actually, I'm gonna guess, at some point does become a real life final girl of some sort, because there is actually a murderer on the loose in the camp, and there's already been some spooky things happening. I have already started reading this one, but I will talk about that in a second. So the second book that I'm hoping to read in this spooky reading vlog is The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas. This is another YA spooky type book. It follows a guy named Jake who goes to this very posh, wealthy prep school, and not only is he the only black kid there trying to fit in, he can also see ghosts, and most ghosts in this book are harmless, and Jake kind of just sees them and they get on with their business. However, there is one ghost who is causing problems, and bodies start showing up on his doorstep, and that ghost was actually a school shooter who shot and killed 6 kids and then also shot himself, and now he is haunting Jake, and he has plans in his afterlife that involve Jake. It sounds fantastic, and I've eyed this one for a really, really long time. I've just never gotten around to it. But the cover is absolutely gorgeous, which is what drew me into this book in the first place. And I just think it's time that I should read this book in time for Halloween. And the third and final book that I want to read in this reading vlog is Brother by Anaya Olben. This is a adult, I'm gonna say it's like a sort of thriller horror book, and I only just found out about this book today. I was watching a video by Sarah Without an H, and she did like a scavenger hunt, and this was the book that she read for that reading vlog. And when I found out what this was about, I immediately stopped watching her reading vlog, because I was like, I don't want to know anything more. That is literally all I need to know, and I need to read this now. So this follows a family, and specifically it follows a 19-year-old boy named Michael, and him and his family live deep in the Appalachians in a farmhouse that is in like literally the middle of nowhere. And the scary thing about his family is that they are all serial killers, and there are bodies buried on this farmhouse, and he is basically wanting to break away from his family. He doesn't find any pleasure in the act of killing people, and so I'm gonna guess it's all about him and trying to escape. That is all I need to know. It sounds fantastic, and I don't know how I've never had this hit my radar before, because it sounds terrifying in the best way possible. And the crazy thing is that this is actually a really old release. It released in like September 2015, but the reviews look really good. I mean, there's like a couple that are like 3 stars or whatever, but the first ones that pop up are literally like 4 or 5 stars. and I just think the concept sounds fantastic, and I just really need to read it now. So this one is going way up on the list. So those are the books that I'm hoping to read. Now for a little bit of a reading update, if I can find my Kindle anywhere. So I am reading the first book that I mentioned, which is You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight, and I am 12% in. It's quite a short-ish book, so I'm kind of hoping that I can finish it quite quickly, and I believe The Taking of Jake Livingston is also quite short as well. So far, I really like the vibes of this one. I'm on kind of like a YA roll at the minute. I read a YA at the beginning of the month that I really, honestly, I loved with all my heart and soul, and it made me realise why I can't let go of the genre, because as much as I often think, oh, I've grown out of YA, it's not good anymore, I'll read one like once every so often and I'll be like, this is why I love it, because you always find that hidden gem somewhere. I don't read that much YA horror. I've read like a very small handful before that I have enjoyed, and I just like the vibes of this one so far. It's definitely creeping me out a bit because they are pretty much, I believe, in the middle of nowhere. They're kind of locked into this camp and they've just sent someone off to go look at the perimeter, and I'm like, some spooky things have happened already and I'm not sure that's a good idea. I will say that I really did like the way that this one opened up, because it almost made it seem like you were in the action already and then it just throws you off and you're not. I do have to say as well, I'm already enjoying the little like comedic relief moments, because this book is obviously written by a author of colour. She wrote Cinderella is Dead, which I have heard pretty good things about, I think. And obviously the main character is like a woman of colour, and there's also two other people at this camp who are also of colour as well. And there's this one scene where Charity, the main character, is going to have a shower because she's got like fake blood on her or whatever, and she wants to wash it off. The door when she gets there is open and she's like, that's a bit weird, like they're obviously gonna play a prank on me, and she's like, cut it out guys, like come on, like I just want to shower. And her torch starts playing up, and what would happen in most horror movies is the character would go in and then obviously they would get ambushed. However, and I'm gonna read this out because this did make me chuckle, she starts texting someone. What happens here is like her torch starts playing up and then she's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this. It literally says, however, I only play a final girl at Camp Mirror Lake. I don't actually want to be one. I turn my black ass right around and book it back to my cabin where I close and lock the door. And I'm sorry. That just honestly made me chuckle so hard, because I'm like, that's relatable. I love this already because this girl obviously has some wits about her, and she's not that dumbass character that would do dumbass things and get herself killed first. Like, thank you. But yeah, I'm really hoping there are more moments like that because I just found that hilarious. But yeah, that's my update. I'm loving it so far. I don't know what I'm going to rate it, but I'm definitely enjoying it way more than the book that I last read, which obviously I will talk about in my wrap up. But I'll update you when I have an update. So I have my first update. It's probably not the update that you think it is. I haven't finished this book yet. I am 66% in, and my plan is that I'm going to finish this tonight. It's doable. I'm going to do it. I just feel like I have to give a little bit more of an in-depth update because I haven't given one yet. This was promising. When it first started, this book was promising. It's now, for me, I think taken a little bit of a downward spiral, and there's like one or two reasons why. So at the beginning, it was giving very kind of like 80s like horror slasher film, which I really, really liked. I haven't read many horrors, but I do kind of like that on edge, like, oh my god, there's someone there and now there isn't, you know, that kind of psychological thrill. And it still has got that vibe, and I'm still very creeped out because you don't quite know what's going to happen to the characters and when. But first of all, I just want to say, I feel like there was way too many characters that were introduced really early on, very, very quickly. And for me, I've forgotten who each character is, and I'm a very visual reader, so I like to envision everything that I'm reading. Obviously, I know that there are some people that don't do that, but I like to envision kind of like what they look like, what their hair colour is, and all of that stuff. And I don't feel like I've been really able to do that because all of the characters were just kind of like, their names were just thrown in randomly at the beginning, and I haven't really managed to kind of learn who they are. And it kind of makes it an issue because there were like 3 characters at the beginning, and this isn't a spoiler because it happens really early on, but it's almost like they're introduced to you and then they're just gone. They're just gone. Obviously this is a horror book, you can imagine what happened. They haven't shown up yet, but I feel I have an inkling. I've like kind of guessed what happened to them. But like they're not there anymore, but like their names are mentioned a lot, and I'm like, did she have interactions with them, or like did we never see them? Like I'm not actually sure at this point. We interrupt this broadcast because my dog was whinging because he knew I was on my bed and he also wanted to get on the bed. Do you want to be in the vlog? Hello? Say, my name is Chewy. Can I give you your boobs? Boop! Give you daily boobs! Now that the daily boopage is over, you want to sit on my lap, don't you? I feel like this is going to cause an issue for us. So as I was saying, the other thing that's kind of made this book go on a downward spiral for me is it's taken a weird turn, and I can't really mention why it's taken a weird turn because it would spoil it. If you've read this, you know, okay? There's a mention of owls, and that's all I'm gonna say. And it isn't quite the turn that I thought it would take. And I know it's a horror book and I know it's fiction, but what I'm envisioning in my head is, I'm pretty sure is not what the author intended. I mean, maybe it is. Right now, okay, this has absolutely no context for anyone who hasn't read this book, but I don't want to spoil it. I'm envisioning a giant bird, like a giant walking bird. And for me, the believability of this book has gone down. And I mean, maybe it's a mask, I'm not sure. But I am picturing a giant bird, wings and all, just a walking giant bird. A human-sized giant bird. And that doesn't make you want to read this book. I don't know what will. But it's not how I thought this would go. Anyway, honestly, I thought this was a solid 3-star, and I'm almost inclined to say that it could be a 2-star. And it's not because it's really terrible, it's just those things have kind of put the enjoyability down for me. But it's okay. Like, I absolutely would read more from this author. It's not that I wouldn't read anything by her again. I do really enjoy her writing. I'm still really loving the comedy. There was a part of this book sort of near the beginning still where 2 of these characters are flirting, and obviously they want to go off and do the deed, and then this other girl is like, oh my god, no, you can't do that. Like, the first rule of any horror film is that the couple that gets together, that serial killer's gonna hear cheeks clapping and it's gonna be coming. And she said something to that effect. I know she said something to the effect of cheeks clapping, and I was just in hysterics. The comedy, like, in this is, honestly, I love it. Like, the one-liners are great. It's those other things that I can't get past. Like, I'm very much someone who, I get invested in characters, and this book hasn't really given me enough time to really invest in the characters, and so I'm kind of like, I'm enjoying it, but like I'm not invested, if that makes any sense at all. Anyway, that's my update. Tomorrow I'm gonna redo my nails, and they're gonna be spooky nails, so I'm gonna end up showing you guys. I've got these like, I don't know what you'd call them. They're like black with like a green glitter ombre. I did them 2 weeks ago, and usually I leave my nails like 2 or 3 weeks in between. But I'm gonna try and start going every 2 weeks, because I find by the 3 or 4 week mark my nails are more prone to like lifting and breaking, and so I want to keep them like on the longer side, because I mean, if you've seen any of my like previous vlogs, you would know that when I went on holiday in September, my nails were really short and I hated them. They were fine, like I don't mind them that short, but it's nice to have a little bit of length. Anyway, that's my update. Hopefully the next update I give you will be that I finished the book that I'm currently reading, and also I have started the next book. Just briefly before I go, I need to show you guys this, because I don't think I've showed you yet. I actually decorated my Kindle. I don't know if I've shown it on screen at all yet anyway, but I decorated my Kindle like maybe like a week ago, I think, and I don't want to say I'm like a Kindle Picasso, but that's kind of what it's feeling like. Look at it. It's so pretty. I mainly bought the stickers because I needed a new pop socket because my pop socket broke when I was on holiday, and I was like, well, I hate not having a pop socket on my Kindle now. I can't do it because I have the Oasis, so it's quite big. But I've gone with this kind of dark academia, like vintage vibe. Show you a close-up because I actually feel like this needs to be acknowledged for how pretty it is. I have done an outstanding job, if I do say so myself. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I've said that this is the last update about 3 times now, and this is literally it. I'm gonna update you soon, okay? Bye. Okay, it's the next day. If I look sweaty, it's because I am. I'm really hot right now. I went out to go and pick up some headphones. So, I finished You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight, last night. That is my dog. Why does he always do this? So I finished it last night. I ended up in the end giving it a 2-star. I feel like we knew that was the direction that this was going in, and it did. So I really enjoyed kind of like the spooky vibes it was giving. It was still giving that kind of slasher horror film vibe, which I really liked, and there was a couple of like scenes where they were almost like very jump scary, and because I'm a very visual reader, I was like envisioning everything, and it was like terrifying me a little bit. I just don't like the way the book turned. Like, the direction that it went in was really weird, and the first half was really great. I loved the build up, I loved the suspense, and then the second half just felt very disconnected from the first half, and it felt like an entirely different book, and I just, honestly, I couldn't get on board with it. It wasn't bad, but it just felt out of place, and it was almost like it had built up a different storyline in the beginning to what the end was. I will say that the book had a little bit of a twist at the end, which I actually didn't see coming, and I did really enjoy that because usually I see twists like coming from a mile away, especially with YA. But it was weird. It was very, very odd. Wasn't really my thing. I did really enjoy the writing, so I feel like I would pick up Cinderella is Dead, which is also by this author. I'm not really put off by her kind of storytelling skills. It's just that this book took a very odd turn, and it was a little bit too odd for me. I feel like maybe if it built up that kind of idea in the beginning, it wouldn't have been so bad, but I was more expecting kind of like, you know, I'm not going to spoil it, but what I was more expecting was kind of like one person chasing these people down in a forest in the woods. That's kind of how I thought it was going to go, and it just, it didn't go that way. So now I think I'm going to go on to The Haunting of Jake Livingston. This is also a really short book, so I'm kind of hoping to get the majority of it read today. I do have to do my nails, which is the only thing, so those are probably going to take me all day. I'm also thinking of maybe doing my toes, so probably going to have most of the day taken up by that, but I do have my energy drink at the ready. I'm going to smash it today. That's what I'm going to do. I've done some tasks that I needed to do for the day, and I'm going to try and read as much as I can, or at least that is the hope. Okay, so it's the next day. I didn't actually manage to read a bunch yesterday like I wanted to because my nails literally took most of the afternoon. I had like a couple of other little bits to do in between, but my nails are done. So I've done some ghosts and some stars, and then I've got like a little moon and star design there, and then my other hand has bats and stars, and then the same like moon and star combo. I just want to say I have done a really good job on these. Usually I'm like complaining about them. The only thing I will complain about is the fact that I have only just learned that I'm using chrome powder wrong. I've put chrome powder on these and they're not giving chrome, they're not giving mirrored, but I did my toes with the same chrome powder, but I used a different technique, and I've realised I've been using it wrong this whole time, so that's fun. So yeah, I didn't manage to read much last night. However, I did wake up like twice during the night, so I've read kind of a lot during the early hours of the morning, and I'm currently 26% of the way in to The Haunting of Jake Livingston, and I'm actually really enjoying it. The story itself is kind of like told in very kind of like short increments, and I kind of like that because it kind of makes it feel like the book is going quicker. It's also told in two perspectives, which I wasn't expecting. It's told in the perspective of Jake, who is the boy that can see ghosts, and then it's also told in the perspective of Sawyer, who was the school shooter. And Sawyer has got to the point where he started haunting Jake now, and is kind of being a little bit of a nuisance. I have to say it's kind of nice to see Sawyer's perspective because obviously he was a school shooter. It's nice to kind of like see that build up to that point and kind of like see his headspace. And I'm gonna say I feel a very, very tiny bit of sympathy for him because his life isn't that great and he's getting bullied by a specific person at school, and you know, all of these factors are kind of like weighing in, I'm guessing, on like what he's gonna end up doing. But then on the other hand, he's also like a massive weirdo, like, and I don't just mean like a little weirdo, he is like giving off serial killer vibes. He is killing bugs and animals and doing all of that weird stuff. He is going to therapy in what I've read so far, but he's hiding things from his therapist, so his therapist can't flag it up with the right institutions to be like, hey, this boy needs major help. But it is interesting to see. I will say though that I feel like the world building is a little bit here and there. I'm not enjoying that about it because it almost feels like a puzzle piece that I can't quite put together. It's not really being explained well, kind of the types of ghosts that Jake can see and kind of like the difference between them. I know that there is a place that he calls the dead world, and then also there are ghosts that are kind of like stuck in a loop, as he says, and these ghosts that are stuck in a loop are essentially ghosts that have died in a specific way and they just are stuck in that kind of like death loop, so they will die over and over again as ghosts. And then there are the ghosts that break the loop, like this Sawyer character, and they aren't stuck in their death loop, so they can kind of like wander around and do what they want. And Sawyer, as far as I know, is a little bit of a poltergeist, so he can like pick things up and like do certain things that the other ghosts in the death loops can't. But other than that, I don't really feel like it's being explained overly well. Like, I like something a little bit more solid when I'm dealing with, you know, something that's supernatural or like fantasy-esque. Like, I like good solid world building and I don't really feel like that's being given to me. But other than that, I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the story. I love Jake as a character and I feel really bad for him because everyone thinks he's really weird, but obviously he's just dealing with something that he doesn't know how to deal with at like 15, 16, however old he is. So yeah, I'm 26% in and I will update you guys when I have another update. Okay, quick update before my camera decides to die or steam up. I am currently 70% of the way through The Haunting of Jake Livingston. Wait, is that what it's called? Have I been calling it The Haunting of Jake Livingston? Now I'm questioning myself. It's The Taking of Jake Livingston. So yeah, I'm currently 70% in. I am hoping to finish this tonight because I really haven't got that much left. So I'm gonna get cracking and do the bits that I need to do and then start reading because I want to move on to my next read and actually finish it before October ends. I'm still gonna go with what I said at the beginning, which is I don't really like how disjointed the kind of world building feels. Like, it sometimes feels like when I'm reading the descriptions of like what's going on in the dead world, my brain's not quite computing what's going on and I'm like, I can't really imagine what's going on now, and I'm a very visual reader, so that's kind of an issue for me. I also just got to a part which I'm not going to spoil it, but if you've read it you'll know what I mean. I got to the pencil part. That gave me so much satisfaction. Honestly, I don't feel like there has been a more satisfying scene in a book this year than that pencil part. That was fantastic. It is kind of really interesting to see Sawyer and kind of the reasonings of why he did what he did, and I do still feel really, really bad for him because there are just some things that happened that are just not okay. But like at the same time it still doesn't justify what he did. But it is interesting to see kind of Jake heading in that same direction. I don't think he will turn out like Sawyer, but I think Sawyer haunting him and kind of like teasing him isn't helping, and I don't know whether that's having an effect on his psyche and now he's becoming more like Sawyer because of that. Again, I'm not going to spoil it, but because of something that happened I'm like, oh, like is he is this having an effect on him? Like, because this doesn't seem like his character, like he's finally snapping, because Jake is very much this quiet, composed, you know, keeps to himself kind of character. Even when people are bullying him and, you know, doing whatever, he is the complete opposite of Sawyer, but now we've kind of seen a different side to him. But I don't know if that's just a case of like, things have been going on so long that he's just snapped and like, this is it. Anyway, my camera's gonna die, so I'm gonna go and then I'm gonna update you guys when I finish the book. In absolute typical Claire fashion, I have realised that I've let all of my batteries die, so I'm gonna have to make this very brief with very unruly hair, and we're just all gonna have to deal with it. So I actually managed to finish The Taking of Jake Livingston last night, and I ended up giving it a 3-star. Now I will say that I do feel like it's bordering 3-star, but it is probably a 2-star. I loved the overall concept. I just honestly feel like it could have done well, or it could have done better as a either longer book or like a series. I feel like the world building overall in this book was incredibly lacking, and I almost feel like you were given kind of snippets of this world, or you were given slight bits of information, and then you were just supposed to take those at face value and be like, okay, that's just the way that it is, that must be how it works. Like, for example, there is a woman in this book who is also a medium, and Jake kind of goes to her for advice and also I guess pointers on how to use his powers and stuff like that, but it's never really explained to you how he met her or what kind of connection she has to him, other than the fact that they're both mediums. It's just as if he kind of like discovered her one day and was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to this woman and that's it, and that's the relationship that we have. And it, you know, you never really discover also like how she learned to use her powers. Like, there's just nothing, it's not giving anything. I also felt like the world building and also the action scenes felt very disjointed. I couldn't imagine at any point, especially during like the action scenes, what the heck was going on. I'm a very visual reader and I couldn't imagine anything that was happening. It felt honestly all over the place. Which brings me on to my next point, because obviously the whole book kind of leads up to this point where Jake is kind of having a standoff with Sawyer. That's kind of like the direction that it goes in, and I feel like honestly the last half of the book felt very rushed, and it almost felt very anticlimactic in that way. The book also deals with kind of heavier topics like homophobia and like racism and stuff like that, and obviously there are trigger warnings for that because some of it is quite heavy. But I honestly, it's not as if that stuff was an afterthought, but it almost feels like the book, if it was going to mention those kinds of things or have that as a plot point, I definitely feel like the book could have done with like being a duology or longer, because it's almost like the author was trying to throw in all of this different stuff, like all of the paranormal stuff, all of the, you know, like topics of racism and homophobia and all of that, and it just, there was too much going on. He was trying to add too much. I will say that I did really enjoy the kind of direction that Jake's character took. I feel like his character really developed towards the end, which I really liked. And my battery is about to die, but I very much doubt that I'm going to be able to do much reading tonight, but I'm going to start reading Brother by Anaya Alban. This is my last update because I finished Brother yesterday evening. It is now the 31st of October, which means it is officially Halloween, and you will probably be seeing this on the Friday, so Halloween is over. I did not achieve what I wanted to, which was to get this video out either before or on Halloween. However, you will be receiving a spooky reading vlog, so I'm not gonna lie, I was very, very disappointed by Brother. I ended up giving it 3 stars. For me, it was an okay read. I think going into it, I maybe expected too much, and what I got wasn't exactly what I was expecting. I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit more scary and a bit more, I don't want to say gory because it had its moments. I was expecting the book to follow more the family and kind of like what they were doing, and the book actually mainly just follows Michael as he's going through this inner turmoil, trying to decide whether or not he wants to be a part of this family anymore. And a lot of the book is basically him kind of going through a phase where he finds someone that he's romantically attracted to, and then thinking about what his life could be like outside of this family. And it was only really towards the end that you were kind of seeing what this family were doing. You kind of got snippets beforehand, but it was only really towards the end that you got kind of like the whole picture of what they were doing. I feel like one of the reasons I didn't really enjoy this as much as I wanted to is that it's very much a slow burn book. I was expecting to be kind of like hit with like shocking revelations and kind of like scary moments the whole way through the book, and it's a lot more slow burn than that. And it was really only towards, I'd say, the last maybe 20% that the book really picked up. There's also not really a massive backstory with the family. You kind of get hints that this is kind of like a generational thing, and especially when it comes to the mum of the family, you kind of hear about the fact that she went through some generational trauma, and the fact that the grandparents are actually a lot worse than what they are, but you don't really know if they're kind of doing the same thing or not. You just know that they're really horrible people because the granddad is kind of a creep, and you know, you can kind of guess why he's a creep. You know, he's attracted to young girls, you know, that kind of thing. You don't really ever learn why the family is doing what they're doing and how it came to be. Like, who decided one day that they was gonna steal hitchhikers from the road and then butcher them for meat? It's never explained. It's just kind of like put there, and you're just expected to be like, okay, like this is the way that it is for this family, like that's not weird. I would have enjoyed this book a lot more if it was about the family and what they were doing and kind of like the backstory of it. It just didn't do what I wanted it to do. Also, while we're talking about kind of like the book being centered around Michael, the whole time he's going through this inner turmoil and he's questioning kind of what they're doing. He clearly doesn't like what they've been doing. Like, he hates hearing the screams of the girls that they sometimes bring back, and he definitely doesn't like it. And the weird thing is that he's not actually 100% innocent. Like, they've kind of raised him from a very, very young age, and he does things that they would do, but he kind of sees himself as like not like them when he is like them, because he's doing exactly what they want him to do. And I'm like, dude, at which point were you thinking of leaving? The thing that I don't get is, like, obviously he's being psychologically kind of manipulated into thinking that he can't leave for certain reasons, but I'm like, if you're feeling that strongly about it, like, just walk away. Like, there's a moment at the end of this book where, apart from one person, because there's like this whole orchestrated thing that happens, the family is asleep, and he's just like, you know, going into the room, and I'm not going to explain what happens because it's a spoiler, but he could have just left in the middle of the night and no one would have known otherwise. I think overall I just wanted something a bit scarier. I feel like the other two YA books that I read, especially the first one that I read, was a lot scarier than what this one was altogether. There were a couple of like gory moments, and I honestly felt a little bit more scared for the hitchhikers and like the women that they were bringing back, obviously, to butcher. I felt scared for them because I just have this whole thing about like being murdered and stuff. Like, it just like, yeah, it's like a huge fear of mine. It's irrational because like serial killers and stuff are very, very rare, but like it's still there in the back of my brain. You could be killed by a serial killer. But I felt more scared for them, and there just wasn't any moments where I was like, yeah, I'm terrified right now. And I just wanted this book to creep me the fuck out, and it didn't do that. So I'm calling this a little bit of a failure. I feel like overall, I feel like the books that I've read for this reading vlog just weren't that great. I really wanted that one that was going to stand out to me and be like the most incredible, like fun, spooky horror book that I've ever read, and none of them did that for me. Like, they were okay. I feel like out of all three, I really enjoyed The Taking of Jake Livingston. Obviously I had my gripes with that book, and I don't think it was as good as it could be, but I feel like overall the storytelling and the overall enjoyment of it, I feel like that was the one out of this vlog that I liked the most, and I'd probably recommend the most. But the other two, just all of them were just like so-so. Like, they were okay, but like I wouldn't shout from the rooftops about them, if you know what I mean. Anyway, that was my spooktacular reading vlog. I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys have any kind of like spooky, scary, horror type reads that you think I should read because you really enjoyed them, please leave them in the comments below, because I really want to read some more, but like I would really love some recommendations, because I've just been going off of books either that I've kind of like looked at and really wanted to read because of the covers, or just ones that I've heard like hearsay about, and I need some that genuinely people think are really good. So leave them in the comments below. If you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content from me, then don't forget to subscribe, and until the next video I will see you then. So bye guys.